The wind screamed like a living thing. Snow tore across the barren ridge in blinding sheets, each gust carrying the sting of ice shards sharp enough to cut skin. Captain America leaned into the gale, his shield strapped tight to his arm, boots crunching through the frozen crust. They had been climbing for hours. Behind him, Sam Wilson, the Falcon, trudged upward, his breath a white cloud in the dark. Tell me again why we're hiking into the middle of nowhere instead of, I don't know, flying? Because, Cap said, eyes scanning the jagged skyline, this place doesn't want us here, and it's making sure we know it. The mountain loomed above them like a black tooth against the storm. Locals called it Katra's Spine, a cursed peak whispered about in old war stories. The kind of place soldiers swore they'd seen move in the night. 2 days ago, a SHIELD satellite picked up something impossible, a pulse of energy from deep inside the mountain, strong enough to knock out comms across half the region. The same signature had been recorded only once before, during the fall of Sokovia. And that was why Steve Rogers was here. They reached a narrow ledge, the wind momentarily dying. Sam crouched, brushing snow from a half-buried object. Steve, you're going to want to see this. It was a helmet. Rusted, dented, but unmistakably HYDRA. Steve's jaw tightened. They were here. Before Sam could reply, the ground beneath them shuddered. A deep, resonant boom rolled through the ice, like the heartbeat of something enormous. Snow cascaded from the cliffs above. "Move!" Steve shouted, grabbing Sam's arm as the ledge cracked. They dove forward just as the rock behind them sheared away, vanishing into the white void. When the rumble faded, Steve looked up and froze. A figure stood on the ridge ahead. Tall, armored in black steel etched with glowing red veins. A tattered Hydra banner fluttered from a spear in his hand. His face was hidden behind a mask carved like a skull. The voice that came from behind it was deep and cold. "Rogers, you've come to die on sacred ground." Steve stepped forward, shield raised. "Who are you?" The figure tilted his head. "Names are for the living. But you knew me once before the mountain claimed me." The mask shifted, and for a heartbeat, Steve saw the face beneath. Scarred. Familiar. Corbin Faust, Steve breathed. Faust had been a Hydra commander during the war. A tactician so ruthless, even the Red Skull had called him dangerous. Steve had watched him fall into a collapsing glacier in 45. "You should have stayed buried," Steve said. Faust's eyes burned red. "The mountain chose me. It gave me power beyond death. And now, it will give me the world." The storm howled again, but this time it wasn't natural. The snow rose in spirals, forming shapes, soldiers in jagged ice armor, their eyes glowing the same crimson as Faust's. Sam's wings snapped open. "We got company." The first ice soldier lunged. Steve's shield met it with a crack, shards exploding into the air. Sam's wing blades sliced through another, scattering it into frost. But for every one they shattered, 2 more emerged from the snow. Faust raised his spear, and the ground split. From the fissure, a black light poured upward, twisting the air. Steve felt it clawing at his mind, memories flickering, shifting. For a moment, he wasn't on the mountain. He was back in Brooklyn, 1943, hearing Bucky's laugh. Then the vision shattered, and he was on his knees. Faust's voice cut through the wind. "The mountain rewrites reality, Rogers. Soon, you won't even remember why you fight." Steve forced himself up. "Then I'll just have to remember harder." He charged. The shield slammed into Faust's chest, the impact ringing like a bell. Faust staggered, but didn't fall. Instead, he caught the shield's edge with one gauntlet hand and threw Steve backward into the snow. Sam dove, grabbing Steve before the ice cracked beneath him. "We need a plan, Cap." Steve's eyes locked on the fissure. The black light was growing stronger, pulsing in time with a mountain's heartbeat. "We close that rift, whatever it takes." They fought their way toward it, every step a battle. Ice soldiers swarmed, claws raking at armor and skin. Steve's shield flashed. Sam's wings cut arcs of silver through the storm. Finally, they reached the edge. The rift yawned open, the darkness inside shifting like liquid shadow. Steve planted his shield in the snow, bracing himself. "Sam, On my mark, hit it with everything you've got. Copy that. Mark! Sam's wing jets roared, unleashing a blast of searing heat into the fissure. The black light screamed, an actual sound, high and inhuman. The rift began to collapse, until Faust's spear slammed into the ground. The fissure exploded outward, swallowing Steve and Sam in a wave of shadow. For a moment, there was nothing. No cold, no sound, just darkness. Then Steve opened his eyes and found himself standing in the middle of Times Square. Only, it wasn't his Times Square. The billboards were in Hydra red. Soldiers marched in perfect lines. And above it all, a massive banner showed Faust's masked face. Sam's voice came from behind him, tight with disbelief. Cap, I think we're not in our world anymore. Steve's grip tightened on his shield. Then we find a way back, and we stop him. Somewhere far above the skyline, the cursed mountain loomed, impossibly, in the middle of the city. Its heartbeat echoed in the air. The city that shouldn't exist. The air stank of ozone and burning steel. Sirens wailed in the distance, but they weren't warning of danger. They were announcing it, a rhythmic blare that matched the synchronized march of Hydra patrols. Steve and Sam moved fast, ducking into the shadow of a crumbling alley. Above them, massive drones swept the streets, their searchlights slicing through the smog. This isn't just another timeline, Sam muttered. It's a prison. Steve's eyes tracked the mountain, impossibly embedded in the heart of the city, its black peaks stabbing into the clouds. And Faust is the warden. A patrol rounded the corner, 6 soldiers in black exo-armor, rifles humming with energy. Steve's shield was in his hand before they even saw him. The first shot sizzled past his head. The second ricocheted off the vibranium with a sharp clang. Sam's wings flared, launching him upward. He dropped like a blade, cutting through 2 soldiers before they could react. Steve slammed into the others, shield and fists moving in a blur. When the last soldier hit the ground, Steve crouched to examine their armor. The HYDRA insignia was fused into the plating, glowing faintly, almost alive. Sam knelt beside him. That's not paint. That's growing. Steve's jaw tightened. The mountain's corruption. It's not just changing the city, it's changing them. They moved deeper into the streets, keeping to the shadows. Every block was worse than the last. Civilians with blank eyes shuffling in lines, massive propaganda screens showing Faust's masked face, and everywhere, the low, steady heartbeat of the mountain. Then they saw it. A convoy of armored transports heading toward the base of the mountain. Inside, through the slats, Steve caught glimpses of prisoners. One face made him stop cold. Bucky. Sam followed his gaze. You sure? I know him anywhere. The convoy turned down a heavily guarded avenue. Steve's mind raced. If Bucky was here, he might know how to break whatever hold the mountain had on this place. But getting to him meant going straight through the most fortified part of the city. Sam grinned. So, same as always? Steve allowed himself the faintest smile. Same as always. They tailed the convoy to a massive gate at the mountain's base. The rock here wasn't natural. It pulsed faintly like muscle under skin. The gate itself was carved into the mountain, flanked by 2 towering statues of armored warriors. The convoy rolled inside. The gate began to close. Now or never, Steve said. They sprinted. Sam's wings carried him over the gate as Steve dove through the narrowing gap. Inside, the air was warmer, heavier, and the heartbeat was louder. The tunnel opened into a vast chamber lit by veins of red light running through the rock. Prison cells lined the walls, each one sealed by a shimmering black barrier. Steve's eyes locked on one cell halfway up the wall. Bucky sat inside, head bowed, hands chained. Bucky. Steve's voice echoed. Bucky's head lifted slowly. His eyes glowed, faintly red. Steve. His voice was hoarse, uncertain. Before Steve could reach him, a spear slammed into the ground between them. Faust stepped from the shadows. You don't belong here, Rogers. But you will, soon enough. The ground shifted under Steve's feet. The chamber walls rippled like water, and suddenly they were standing on a battlefield, the ruins of New York burning. Hydra banners hung from shattered skyscrapers. Faust's voice came from everywhere. The mountain shows you what will be. This is your future. Steve gritted his teeth. Not if I can help it. He charged. Faust met him head on, spear clashing against shield in a shower of sparks. Sam dove from above, but Faust's free hand unleashed a wave of black energy that hurled him across the battlefield. Steve fought hard, every strike of his shield ringing against Faust's armor. But the longer they fought, the more the world around them shifted, the battlefield becoming a frozen wasteland, then a jungle, then a city street. Faust was bending reality itself. You can't win, Rogers, Faust said, driving him back. Every blow you land, every step you take, the mountain rewrites it. You're already losing. Steve's muscles burned, but he pushed forward. Then I'll keep losing until I win. A sudden blast of heat tore through the air. Sam, back on his feet, unleashing his wing jets at full power. The flames struck Faust's armor, forcing him to retreat a step. Steve seized the opening, slamming his shield into Faust's mask. The metal cracked, revealing a glimpse of the scarred face beneath. Faust roared, and the world shattered again, this time dropping them back into the prison chamber. But now, every cell door was open, and the prisoners were walking out, their eyes glowing red. At the far end, Bucky stepped forward, chains falling away. "Steve," he said, and there was no recognition in his voice. Brother against brother. The chamber's air was thick, almost liquid, vibrating with the cursed mountain's heartbeat. Dozens of prisoners shuffled forward, their movements unerringly synchronized. The red glow in their eyes pulsed in time with the veins of light running through the rock. Bucky stood at the front, chains falling from his wrists like they'd never been locked. His voice was flat, mechanical. "You don't belong here, Steve." Steve's grip tightened on his shield. "Bucky, it's me. You know me." Faust's voice slithered through the chamber. "He knows you, Rogers. He just doesn't care anymore." Bucky moved first. One moment he was standing still, the next he was a blur of motion, metal arms swinging in a brutal arc. Steve barely got his shield up in time, the impact rattling his bones. Sam darted in from the side, trying to grab Bucky, but two other prisoners intercepted him, their strength far beyond normal. Sam's wings flared, throwing them back, but more surged forward. Steve blocked another strike, then another. "Bucky, listen to me. This isn't you." Bucky's eyes flickered, just for a second, but Faust's spear slammed into the ground, and the glow in Bucky's gaze flared brighter. The fight became chaos. Steve and Bucky traded blows like old sparring partners turned mortal enemies. Every strike of memory twisted into violence. Sam fought to keep the other prisoners at bay, but they moved like a single organism, anticipating every attack. Steve ducked under a swing, slammed his shield into Bucky's ribs, and used the opening to grab his friend's arm. "You're stronger than this. Fight it." Bucky's jaw clenched. His voice was a whisper. "I can't." Then he headbutted Steve hard enough to send him sprawling. Faust stepped forward, the prisoners parting for him like water. "You see, Rogers? The mountain doesn't just control the body. It rewrites the soul." Steve pushed himself up, blood in his mouth. "Then I'll rewrite it back." He charged, not at Faust, but the wall of the chamber where the red veins converged. His shield smashed into the rock, sending cracks, spiderwebbing outward. The mountain screamed, a sound that made the air vibrate and the prisoner stagger. Bucky clutched his head, the glow in his eyes flickering again. Sam caught on instantly. "Hit the veins. Break the connection." He launched upward, wing blades slicing through another glowing conduit. The chamber shook violently, chunks of rock raining down. Faust roared, his voice echoing like thunder. "Enough!" He thrust his spear toward Steve, but Bucky moved. The metal arm caught the spear mid-strike, stopping it inches from Steve's chest. Faust's eyes narrowed. "Traitor!" Bucky's voice was ragged, but his own. "Not yours." The prisoners screamed as the red light in their eyes flared and then shattered like glass. Some collapsed, others stumbled back, dazed. Faust ripped his spear free and slammed it into the ground. The floor split open, and a surge of black energy erupted, swallowing Steve, Sam, and Bucky whole. They landed hard on a frozen slope. The air was thin, the wind razor-sharp. Above them, the cursed mountain towered. But this wasn't the city anymore. This was the real mountain in its true form. Bucky groaned, pushing himself up. "Where are we?" Steve scanned the jagged peaks. "Inside it." Sam pointed upward. We've got company." Figures were descending the slope toward them. Not soldiers this time, but creatures of ice and shadow, their forms constantly shifting. The three of them stood back to back as the creatures closed in. Steve's shield flashed, Sam's wings cut arcs through the snow, Bucky's metal arm shattered icy skulls. But for every one they destroyed, more emerged from the storm. Then the ground beneath them cracked, and they were falling. They landed in a cavern so vast it felt like a world unto itself. At its center rose a black spire, veins of red light pulsing up its sides. At the top, embedded like a heart in a rib cage, was a massive crystal, and inside it, something moved. Faust's voice echoed from everywhere. "Welcome to the heart of the mountain." The crystal flared, and the thing inside pressed against its prison. It was humanoid, but wrong. Too tall, too thin, its face a shifting mask of agony and hunger. "The mountain is alive," Bucky whispered. Faust stepped from the shadows, his armor now fused with the mountain's veins, his eyes burning like molten metal. "And it chose me to be its voice." Steve raised his shield. "Then we shut it up." Faust laughed, and the crystal shattered. The thing inside unfolded itself, its limbs bending in ways that defied anatomy. The cavern shook as it stepped forward, each movement warping the air. Sam's voice was tight. "Cap, I think we just found the final boss." Steve's jaw set. "Now let's make sure it's the last thing this mountain ever sees." The creature roared, and the cavern plunged into darkness. The heart devours. The darkness wasn't absence. It was alive. It pressed against their skin, slid into their ears, whispered in voices that weren't their own. Steve gritted his teeth, forcing his mind to stay anchored. Somewhere in the black, he heard Sam's breathing quicken, Bucky's metal arm flex with a low whine. Then two eyes opened in the void. Not glowing, burning. The creature stepped forward, its body bending and unfolding like it was made of liquid shadow and jagged ice. Every movement warped the cavern, making the walls stretch and twist. Faust stood beside it, his armor now fused completely with the mountain's veins, his voice a low growl. "Behold Katsra, the first and last king of this world." The thing's head tilted towards Steve. Its voice was a chorus of 1,000 whispers. "You carry the shield of the false age. Lay it down, and I will let you live." Steve raised the shield higher. Not happening. The creature moved faster than thought. One moment it was 10 feet away, the next its clawed hand slammed into the shield, the impact throwing Steve across the cavern. He hit the ground hard, the vibranium ringing like a struck bell. Sam's wing jets roared, twin streams of fire cutting across the creature's torso. The flames hissed and died instantly, snuffed out by the cold radiating from its body. Bucky charged in, metal arms swinging, and the creature caught it mid-strike. The sound of metal bending filled the air. Steve was already moving, shield spinning through the air. It smashed into the creature's head, making it release Bucky. Sam swooped low, grabbing Bucky and pulling him clear. Faust's laughter echoed. "You can't kill it. It is the mountain. Every strike you land only feeds it." Steve's eyes darted to the shattered crystal fragments scattered across the floor. The veins of red light that had run through the cavern were dimmer now, flickering. "Then we starve it," Steve said. They moved as one. Sam strafed the creature, drawing its attention with bursts of fire and wing blades. Bucky tore into the cavern walls, ripping out chunks of the glowing veins. Steve smashed every crystal shard he could reach, each blow making the creature stagger. But Faust wasn't idle. He hurled his spear, the weapon splitting into 3 mid-flight, each one trailing black fire. Steve deflected one, Sam dodged another, but the third buried itself in Bucky's side. Bucky dropped to one knee, teeth clenched against the pain. The wound didn't bleed. It smoked, the black fire eating into him. Steve's heart pounded. "Sam!" Get him clear. Sam grabbed Bucky, hauling him toward the cavern's edge. Faust moved to intercept, but Steve slammed into him, shield first. The two crashed into a pillar of black stone, the impact sending cracks racing up its length. Faust's mask was inches from Steve's face. You think you're saving him? You're just delaying the inevitable. Steve shoved him back. I've made a career out of that. The creature roared, the sound shaking loose chunks of the ceiling. One massive claw swept across the cavern, smashing through pillars and sending shockwaves through the floor. Steve saw it then. At the creature's core, where the veins converged, there was a pulsing knot of light. Smaller than the crystal had been, but brighter, rawer. Target the core, he shouted. Sam banked hard, diving straight toward it. His wing blades sliced deep, sparks and black ichor spraying into the air. The creature screamed, its form flickering like a dying flame. Faust lunged, spear aimed at Sam's back, but Bucky, bleeding shadow, stepped into his path. His metal arm caught the spear, twisted, and snapped it in half. Faust's eyes widened. No! Bucky drove the broken spearhead into Faust's chest. The HYDRA commander staggered, the veins of red light in his armor going dark. The creature howled, its connection to Faust severed. Steve seized the moment, hurling his shield with every ounce of strength he had. The vibranium disc slammed into the core, embedding itself deep. Light exploded outward. The cavern shook violently, the walls collapsing. The creature's form unraveled, dissolving into streams of black mist that were sucked back into the mountain's walls. Faust fell to his knees, the mask cracking away to reveal a face twisted in rage and fear. You can't stop it. The floor gave way beneath them. They tumbled through darkness, the roar of the collapsing mountain all around. When Steve's vision cleared, they were lying on a snow-covered slope under a gray sky. The mountain loomed above, but it was smaller now, its peak shattered, the red veins gone. Bucky groaned, clutching his side. The black fire was gone, but the wound was deep. Sam scanned the horizon. Cap, we've got a problem. Steve followed his gaze and saw the city. The Hydra-ruled version of New York was still there, sprawled across the valley where no city should exist. And at its center, a new spire of black rock was already rising. The last stand at the spire. The wind howled across the valley, carrying the metallic tang of the city's smog. Steve, Sam, and Bucky stood on the ridge, staring down at the impossible skyline. Hydra banners snapping in the wind, patrol drones circling like vultures, and at the city's heart, the newborn spire of black rock clawing its way toward the clouds. Bucky's voice was low. We destroyed the heart. How is it still growing? Steve's jaw tightened. We didn't kill it. We just made it angry. The ground trembled under their boots. From the base of the spire, black tendrils erupted, snaking through the streets, wrapping around buildings. Wherever they touched, the structures twisted, reshaping into jagged fortresses. Civilians scattered or swallowed whole, their bodies vanishing into the stone. Sam's eyes narrowed. It's feeding on the city. Steve turned to them. We end this now, no matter what it takes. Bucky smirked faintly. That's the Steve Rogers I remember. They moved fast, skimming the rooftops to avoid the patrols. Sam's wings carried him in tight arcs, scouting ahead. Bucky kept his rifle ready, picking off sentries before they could raise alarms. Steve led from the front, shield deflecting the occasional burst of energy fire. The closer they got to the spire, the more the air thickened, heavy electric, tasting of iron and ash. The heartbeat was back, louder than ever, rattling their bones. At the base, a massive gate of fused steel and stone blocked the way. The HYDRA insignia was carved into it, glowing faintly. Bucky stepped forward. I've got this. His metal arm punched through the lock mechanism, tearing it free in a shower of sparks. The gate groaned open. Inside, the spire was hollow, a vast, spiraling chamber lined with veins of red and black. At its center, suspended in midair, was a sphere of swirling shadow. Faust stood beneath it, or what was left of him. His body was half stone, half flesh, the veins of the mountain crawling across his skin. His eyes burned brighter than ever. "You can't stop it, Rogers," he said, voice echoing unnaturally. "The mountain doesn't die. It becomes." Steve stepped forward. "Then we make sure it becomes nothing." Faust raised his hands, and the sphere pulsed. The walls of the spire peeled away, revealing the city outside. But it was changing. Towers bent into impossible shapes, streets twisted into spirals, the sky itself folding inward. Sam's voice was tight. "It's rewriting the whole world." Bucky chambered around. "Then we take out the pen." They attacked together. Steve's shield slammed into Faust, knocking him back. Sam's wing blades carved through the veins feeding the sphere. Bucky's rifle barked, each shot shattering chunks of the black stone. Faust fought like a man possessed, because he was. The mountain's power surged through him, every strike of his spear sending shock waves through the chamber. Steve blocked one, the impact driving him to his knees. Faust loomed over him. "You could have ruled this world, Rogers. Instead, you'll be buried in it." Steve shoved upward, shield smashing into Faust's jaw. "Not my style." Sam's voice cut through the chaos. "Cap, the sphere, it's destabilizing." Steve looked. The swirling shadow was flickering, collapsing inward. But the veins feeding it were still pumping energy. "Bucky, cut the lines." Bucky didn't hesitate. He leapt onto the nearest vein, metal arm tearing through it. Black ichor sprayed, burning where it touched skin. He ripped through another and another. The sphere screamed, a sound that wasn't sound at all, but pressure in their skulls. Faust roared, charging Bucky. Steve intercepted, shield meeting spear in a clash that shook the spire. Sam dove low, grabbing Bucky and hauling him clear. The sphere was collapsing faster now, pulling the air toward it. Chunks of stone, shards of metal, even Hydra soldiers were dragged upward, vanishing into the swirling dark. Steve planted his feet, fighting the pull. "Sam, get Bucky out of here." Sam's eyes widened. "Cap, go." Bucky struggled, but Sam's grip was iron. They shot upward, out through the collapsing walls. Steve turned back to Faust. The HYDRA commander was being dragged toward the sphere, his stone-fused limbs cracking under the strain. "You'll die with me, Rogers." Faust snarled. Steve's voice was steady. "If that's what it takes." He hurled his shield. It struck the last vein feeding the sphere, severing it completely. The sphere imploded. Light, blinding, pure, erupted outward, swallowing everything. When Steve opened his eyes, he was lying on snow. The mountain was gone. The city was gone. Just a wide, empty valley under a clear sky. Sam and Bucky were beside him. Bucky looked around. "Did we win?" Steve exhaled slowly. "We stopped it. That's enough." Sam grinned. "You know, for a guy who hates magic mountains, you sure spend a lot of time in them." Steve allowed himself a small smile. "Let's go home." They turned away from the empty valley, the wind carrying only silence. Far beneath the snow, something shifted. A heartbeat.